Hey, Paranormal Triage here. I'm Brenda.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're here to talk paranormal tonight. And hopefully some of you guys out there join us and ask us any questions. There's nothing off limits for the most part, as long as it's nice. Has to be nice.
So what platforms are we live on right now so people can reach out?
YouTube, X, and Facebook.
All right. So get on there, go live, leave us a comment so we know you're there. And we could have some question and answer time as we
get through this.
Talk about some stuff.
Anyway, so I know most people that know us, especially in our local area, kind of already know our backstory and kind of how we started this whole journey with Paranormal Triage. In our early videos, when we didn't really know where we were going with this, we have done a little bit of, I suppose, podcasting, if that's what you want to call it. We dropped some videos kind of telling about different parts of the story, but I don't think we ever really talked about what was going on in our house specifically. And I think the lead up to this is, how do you know if your house is haunted? How do you know if it's just spirits hanging out, energy, or how do you know if it's been possessed by some crazy demon, which that would be kind of hard to do.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's pretty rare.
So if you have questions, please leave them in the chat boxes and we will answer any questions that you have. So anyway.
So yeah, like you said, everybody that knows us pretty much knows our story. And we've been out on a couple things on social media, other people's podcasts, and then our stuff. So people know our story, but we can kind of recap some of that. Why don't we kind of go to the beginning, like before experiences we had before we were kind of into this stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, nice to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Paul.
Glad to see you here. So Paul's heard our story. So anyway, so yeah, let's kind of rewind a little bit.
Oh, I just thought of something that we could show, and that's the pictures of Judith, which are on my phone. We sent them to the email. So I'll work on that in the middle of this.
Okay.
I didn't even think about it earlier today.
Pictures of what?
The handprint.
Oh yeah, we were going to talk about
that.
Yeah, so we kind of tried to put this together and we lost our notes because that's what happens when you have children. So, you write stuff down and if you don't put it away, it's going to be gone in like 5 seconds.
Or it gets painted on or colored on or something.
Painting is a huge thing in our house. So, but anyway, so we'll kind of go way back a little bit, through all this. Obviously, I discovered I'm kind of an empath, have some empathic abilities. I haven't reached that amazing point where I can really tap into that, but we're working on that right now, or I'm working on that. I guess there's no we in that one. It's just me. But, so when I was little, I always had, feelings, would attach to certain things, or I would be super emotional to things that didn't really make sense, that weren't really mine to be attached to. So I kind of chalked that up to being able to feel certain energies and stuff like that. But, we never really talked about it, never really got into the paranormal side of things until the last few years. But then over my life, I think you do notice things and you feel things. And it's not always necessarily what you see, but it's what you feel. And, when they say when you investigate, it's not necessarily all the fancy tools you have, it's what you feel in your stomach. It's that gut feeling that you're feeling.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before at other podcasts, but when it comes to using equipment and tools, and they're what they are as a tool. right? There is a starting point where you get some data and information. It really comes down to how you interpret that information and the knowledge you have in order to kind of put the information from the tool with your gut feeling and then come to your conclusion.
Yeah. So when I think, obviously we're first responders, and I think as first responders, we learn to, I'm going to say this big word and I'm sure I'll mess it up, but compartmentalize. And we do it really quick because you just learn to do that. You don't have time to be emotional or to react or things of that nature. So we learn to put that away really quick. So I think throughout our careers, we've experienced more stuff than we realize. And there it comes back down to that feeling. And I know we've had feelings before, but we just chalked it up to being stressed or stressful, or that was stressful. And then we make all our bad jokes about it to feel better. So, but you have to, if you don't have a sense of humor in the kind of field of work we've done or did or do now, you won't last very long in this field. So,
yeah. So to kind of, I don't have the same kind of feelings or abilities or gift or whatever you want to call it as you do, Brenda, but I have the ability to kind of interpret and understand people's body language just because of being a first responder for so many years, right? We're trained to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
So, you go on a medical call in someone's house, we're looking at everything that's going on, not just what our patient is, right? So we're trained to get the big picture, get a sense of what people's body language is. Are they being truthful? Are they being deceitful? Your body systems, they don't lie. You can say a lie, but your heart rate and your blood pressure and all that stuff, that is specific, right? You can't change that unless you're really, really good at it. Like, I don't know, Navy SEAL status type people that can adjust their heart rates on a whim, but most people can't. So that's where I can kind of use some of those experiences and abilities to kind of determine whether something is real or not.
Yeah, and I think I didn't make something public here, so I'll have to figure out that as we go along here. So, hi, Virgil, we see you. I'm not sure if I can comment back to where you see it because we're still kind of learning this system. So, yeah, I'm fired. So, yeah, I think some of my early experiences, which we've talked about, because I'm sure people are kind of tired of hearing the same story. But for those who don't know the story, my first experience as a first responder that I actually acknowledged and said, hey, there's something real here besides just, showing up at work and people dying and, and you're going through all these tragic events. But my first time was some kids that got hit on a moped, and my patient passed away. And I knew these boys because they went to school with my kids. And this is just kind of for me by myself. So I don't think Ryan and I were married yet, but I came home and I went to lay in my room on my bed, and I lived in like this house that kind of had vents in the ceiling or in the walls that would vent the rooms, vent each area, so light would always shine through that vent. But when I went to lay down, for some reason, I opened my eyes and I experienced that big black ball that everybody talks about. And it was scary. So, I jumped out of bed and I'm thinking, oh my God, what was that? And I'm freaked out. And sorry, I have a bad voice today, but it's allergy season. So fun.
Last time it was me that had the bad voice.
Yeah, now it's me. Thanks. So, I jumped out of my bed and I'm just like looking around and I'm like, oh my God, what was that? But then I'm, disregarding it like, oh, this is just stress. This is all in my head. So I plugged in a nightlight, being all freaked out. And so I had stacked a bunch of pillows against my headboard so I could kind of sit upright. So in case I needed to jump and run, it would be a lot easier than, rolling out of bed and running. So I stacked all those pillows up and I closed my eyes. And no sooner I closed my eyes, it was like somebody took an open hand and smacked my pillow, and I could feel it. And I could see the impression on my pillow and I could hear it. And then this cold wind went across my face. And that really freaked me out. So then I'm pretty sure I slept with the lights on all night. So that was the first time that I realized that, yeah, I have these weird abilities and there's something more to the world. But then I just kind of put it away again and I didn't think about it again. So that was like my first kind of wake up call about spirits and energy and do people really come and visit you? And I really believe that this kid came to see me and just wanted to let me know that it was okay, because it never happened again after that. It was just that quick, and then it happened, and then it never happened again. So
yeah, it's strange how those things happen and how they connect. And the longer you're a first responder and the more you kind of get open to spirituality and different things paranormal, you start to notice the things in real time versus when you start thinking back to the things that happen.
right,
You know, I could think of a lot of things that happened to me that were like, hey, that was weird during that call, but then you just move on.
yeah,
And then now I look at it and go, hey, that was totally 100% spiritual or paranormal.
yeah, yeah.
So, and I'm looking at the comments here, Virgil. I'm kind of curious, what time is it in England? Right? Because that's like on the other side of the pond, right? And then you say that respect is my job here in England. You're talking about paranormal investigating or first responder work. So what do you do? Anyway, because kind of going back to not recognizing something as paranormal when it's happening, you know, I went on a call that was dispatched as a CPR in progress call, right? And our whole crew responds, and the fire engine crew responds, as well as an ambulance response, and we're doing our thing, and we're working this CPR in progress, and it's a lady in her 80s, right? We're in the back room of an older house that was built like probably in the 60s, and you know, we've gone through every level of treatment that we can. At that point, we're going to determine. It's at that point to determine, okay, we're going to stop our efforts and pronounce this person deceased, following all the rules and protocols to do that. So the paramedic makes that determination, kind of looks at all of us. Anybody agrees or anything else we can try? No, we've done everything. We've talked to the doc at the hospital. We're following our protocols. This is what's going to happen. And so he looks at his watch. He says the time and, time of death. And the power goes out in the house.
Yeah.
At that exact moment.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's like, wow, that's weird. And we all kind of look at each other like, that's creepy. And then the power came back on. So it's like, was that a sign as in to don't stop, or is that a sign as in it's okay?
Yeah.
But we didn't think it. We noticed it as being weird and creepy, but we didn't think of it as paranormal. And at that point in time in our lives and our career, we weren't. I wasn't doing paranormal stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Either was I.
So those things happen, but you don't think of it. Like
we weren't
paranormal.
We weren't even watching paranormal shows at that time. We weren't even into it. So it's like, oh, paranormal shows. Okay, whatever.
I mean, I believed in it at that point because of some experiences we had at a different place where we had lived prior to that time frame. Yeah. Because we had moved out of the ranch house at that point, but. Yeah, you don't think about it until you're open-minded to it.
Yeah. Yes, Virgil, you can pretty much ask anything you want. We don't get offended easy, and we'll try to answer it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As honestly and as much as we can. So, but yeah, so I think we've all had those little experiences, and even probably your kids have if you have kids, and you just kind of blow them off like imaginary friends, talking to balls that, it's like, why are you talking to the ball? So I think most parents, we just kind of blow it off as nothing, but kids are definitely more susceptible to that kind of stuff. So I think after meeting Ryan, like I said, I didn't really think about that incident much, except it was just, that call will always stay with me.
There was some weird kind of aura in the air when that happened.
Yeah, there was.
Because that was in the month of February, and it was kind of crudely named in this area as Fatal February.
Yeah.
Because it seems like every week there was some kind of absolute crazy thing happening to first responders throughout the county.
Yeah. So the kind of the way things happen, which is really weird, because I also worked as an ER tech in the trauma room, and everything would come in like waves. Like if you were going to get broken arms, everybody would have a broken arm. If you were going to get strokes, you were going to have a night of strokes, and so on. And I don't know why it works that way. It just does. But the Fatal February kind of started out with a guy who was mentally ill, probably a drug addict, taking a lot of meds. And if I remember the story right, he thought his roommate had taken his medication. So he basically went on a killing spree for the most part.
Yeah, just innocent people.
Just random, went out. and
Did some really crazy stuff, like, hit him in the head with a splitting wall and then started eating them.
I wasn't going to tell that
So,
story.
but I mean, that's the weirdness of that time, right? So that crazy thing happens, right? And then he had set fire to things, and it was just a big crazy, and that happened not too far away from where we currently live.
Yeah, it wasn't too far away from
And then that kind of started it, and then there was a first responder death.
Yeah, so it was the crazy guy went crazy and did all these horrible things. The next day I had went on a trailer fire, and unfortunately that was my first horrifying pediatric call. And he had actually burned up in the trailer. The trailer caught fire and the parents couldn't get the child out. So those are things that we really don't like to talk about, but we'll talk about it because that's kind of how some of these things start. And then the next day, it was the first responder that got hit. He actually went on a traffic collision. It was a rainy weekend. By the time of the end of the weekend, it was starting to rain. So he was out on a traffic collision, and it was on the side of the road doing cleanup, and then another car slid out, ran off the roadway, and ran him over and killed him. So it was a very emotional weekend. So anytime those things happen, you're on high emotional alert. It's on. You almost can't even stop it.
No, but the point of that is that a lot of crazy stuff was happening, and as people in the first responder world, our exposure to death, for one, is up a lot, much more than the normal everyday citizen, right? And then the other part of that is the energies.
Yeah.
Every time we go on a stressful call, it's not just, we absorb that stress too. And it's just the energy that is associated with people that are calling 911.
Yeah.
Right. So that was one of those months that it wasn't just, now you had some very specific encounters and incidents that month, but there was a lot of people having a lot of those throughout the county. I mean, there was multiple traffic collisions that were fatalities. There was, the first responder, the firefighter that was killed. There was a lot of those things. It's just like, man, that energy of that month was just weird.
Yeah, and we're not really, we don't follow moon cycles. I mean, we've been asked about moon cycles, and that's something that we're going to kind of dive into someday, because I think it is relevant. I think it is.
I think there's some part of it. That's just my uneducated guess at this point, right? Just looking at all the things that we've experienced, and that's kind of part of the reason for this talk is we've experienced everything on all sorts of different levels. So it's intense energy.
So that's a good question, Virgil. Let's see. Do we think or have bad dreams about what you see? Periodically I do. I'm not much of a dreamer, but I do go through weird ways, and it's far and in between where I'll dream about calls. I don't dream about them often. I think that goes back to us being able to compartmentalize really well, but that doesn't mean later on in life that can't come and sneak up on us. So when you start having those dreams, you have to definitely pay attention to that, because first responders have one of the highest suicide rates, because we kind of just think that I don't know if we think we're tough or we just think we can handle it, and these things really don't bother me. I'm a little bit, I think I have some walls up, so sometimes I'm like, I should be more emotional about this and I should be thinking about this more, but I don't. So that could be a red flag in the kind of work we do. But I haven't had very many dreams.
So when you break it down from a physiology standpoint, if we have any of the doctor type people out there, chime in the comments. So basically, my understanding of it is your brain is extremely unique, right? The human brain is a magnificent piece of equipment, right? So your brain wants to cope with stressful things. So that's why we have those dreams, because it wants you to process it and it wants you to cope with it. Okay, so those neurons and those synapses, they fire and they make you have those dreams, and they want you to have all the emotions, and they want you to process through what you've experienced on a stressful level. The problem or I should say, it's like the hurdle that people that are exposed to these things have to deal with is when you're exposed to it on a repetitive basis. Your brain gets tired and has a really hard time doing those things. So sometimes it won't stop.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of where it comes with the whole post-traumatic stress. Right. They took the D off of it because it's not really a disease, because you can't like take meds and make it go away, because there is no psych meds out there that are going to stop your post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. And it's not a disorder either. It's not a disease. It's not a disorder. It's just.
It's one of those things that your brain has to process. And the chemical makeup and the neurological makeup of everyone's brain is just a little bit different, right? The roadmap of neurons is different for every person. It's unique like your fingerprint. So it has to process in a certain way. And people that experience high levels of trauma, military people in combat, 25, 30 year plus, first responders that are working in high demand areas, your brains get tired, and it keeps trying to process it because it wants you to process things even though you're too tired to do it. And that's where you get that post-traumatic stress, the traumatic stress that you relive after the traumatic event.
Yeah. And just to go back to that, Virgil, because, that's super personal, and I'm really sorry for your loss. I wish more people reached out for help in those moments, because I believe a lot of suicides are just in a moment, and I'm pretty sure if they wish they could take it back, they would. But I lost my daughter in 2022. She was autistic, and I didn't really know she was autistic until she got older, and it was kind of too late to do anything. They tried to diagnose her with other things like ADHD and things of that nature, which was, back then they wanted to diagnose every kid with ADHD. It's like, really? So
they still do to a point.
So by the time she got to be an adult, I realized that she was autistic because we had more information. And she had quite a few traumatic events happen to her, and she had lost a baby, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin for her, so to speak. And she became homeless, and she just kind of lost her marbles, and we could just never get her back. Well, she ended up getting hit by a car, and she lost her life. But like I said, I don't dream a whole lot, but the night before she got hit, I had a dream, and I had spent a lot of time in the homeless camps, looking for her, making sure she was okay, trying to get her to come home and get her the help that she needed. And so I was very familiar with, their environment and stuff like that. So in this dream, I just I started out, I was just running through the camps, and I was really in a panic, and I couldn't find her. And I'm asking all the people, where's Leanne? And, there were some choice words in there, but I'm like running through these wooded areas that were similar to where she was, saying, where is she? And then I came up on her boyfriend at the time, and I'm like, where's Leanne? And he's like, I don't know. And then I, started running some more. And then I finally came to this little cluster of trees, and I'm not going to describe how I found her, but it wasn't good. And then I woke up. But then that next morning she had called me, and I went down to see her, and she was tired. She needed a little bit of money, and, I wasn't going to give her any. Actually, I hung up the phone with her, and I'm like, I don't have money. And I hung the phone up, and then I'm like, called her back. I'm like, all right, I'll be down there. So thankfully, God gave me a moment that most people don't get. We had the whole, I'm sorry this is happening. It's just weird that I didn't put two and two together, though, having that dream. But like Ryan said, we weren't really into ghost hunting then, or that spiritual connection or anything like that. So I didn't put two and two together. And I don't even know if I would have been able to stop it anyways. But, she's in a better place now. I miss her dearly. But I do now, I dream more about her than I ever have. But that one specific dream was just super weird that would happen. And then I get to say my goodbyes to her, basically. And most people don't get that opportunity. So I feel lucky in that respect, but it's hard to lose children or your partners or anything like that. It's super hard.
Well, yes. And then you couple that with a lot of the other traumas we had are all around the same time. And then, going back to the comment I made earlier about as a first responder, once you open up your mind and you kind of notice some of the paranormal stuff and the kind of the spiritual level of things, really, I think some of this stuff, at least for me, kind of allows me to connect on a spiritual level with a lot of those stresses.
Yeah.
We talked about, in our video about the dam, about that 13-year-old boy who had lost his life in that area that we think came through the spirit box and talked. And at the, you know, after the fact, once we put the puzzle pieces together, it hit me a little bit because, you know, that was one of those calls that I did have dreams on that call for probably about 2 weeks. And I had some stressful moments. And like, you know, the day after I got off shift from that, we took the kids to the pool, and I was like adamant that they didn't take their life jackets off, and like being kind of, you know, a very strict, mean person about all of that stuff. But then being able to do paranormal research essentially has allowed me to understand that there's a deeper spiritual connection to all of this stuff, and to allow some of that stuff to just kind of flow. So it's helped me deal with some of my, you know, I really don't have traumas from work, but it happens.
Yeah.
So this is what allows me to do that. And our lives are not, you know, without stress.
Yeah.
You know, raising 3 young kids, dealing with all the stuff from the modern world that we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So our lives are stressful. So this allows me to kind of understand that spirituality.
Yeah. So my advice to anybody, you don't have to be a first responder to suffer from post-traumatic stress. Any stressful event that is beyond your capability, which is not your fault, you have to always listen to your body. If you're having those dreams, if you're not being able to get past certain things, don't ignore it. Please get the help that you need, because, you know, that's kind of when people decide to take their lives. They feel like this is the end. There's nowhere for me to go. There's always somewhere to go, no matter how bad it feels. Sometimes it takes a minute to get there, but please don't ignore those red flags, you know, or your body, because your body knows best. So, yeah.
And I would say that, you know, experiences that we had at the house we lived in before our current house, the ranch house, that was just kind of stuff that it was kind of creepy. It happened, but it wasn't really that scary.
Yeah. So some of the things that, like, you know, when you want to know, is my house haunted? So after Ryan and I met, and, you know, we moved into our first house together and got married and all that good stuff. We lived in a 100-year-old ranch house, and it was an awesome house. It's a house I always wanted to live in, but it also had a basement. And I decide now that I don't like basements. So,
and for people that are not familiar with Northern California, you know, this is not basement country.
Yeah.
This is having a basement, and a significant basement is unusual.
Yeah.
We don't have, you know, tornadoes and things like that here. So we don't live in an area where basements are very prevalent.
Yeah.
If they do have a basement, usually small, but this house
had a big
the basement was the entire footprint of the building, right? Which to me is weird because I've never lived in an area where basements are normal.
Yeah.
So, and it had a dirt floor.
So the backstory to it, the property used to be an apple orchard. And so in the basement used to be the living quarters for the workers. And then over time, they did away with the apple orchard, and it became a cattle ranch. And so then, of course, all the living areas down there became pretty dilapidated, and it just kind of became like your junk stasher room, or whatever you want to call it, your tool shed.
Yeah, I mean, because originally that's where their servants lived, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So think of the basement as like a full on like 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment. It had a working kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Although when we lived there, the kitchen wasn't working, but like it still had the water pipes and stuff like that. All the countertops and all that had been removed, but it had a bathroom.
Yeah. Had everything.
And then 2 rooms. It had like the root cellar.
Yeah.
And then it had the wood furnace.
Yeah. So you had to go downstairs to light the furnace so you would stay warm. But the first day that we moved into that house, Brian conveniently got the flu. And I had my 2 girls with me. And at nighttime, it would get really dark out there. And there was a lot of windows in this house. The windows kind of freaked me out the most because I feel like the whole world could see you. So I told the girls we're going to stay in the one room upstairs. So I went and got our snacks and our drinks, and we had a TV in that room. So we get all settled, and I forget something. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to run back downstairs and get whatever I forgot. And then the door was locked. Now, mind you, this door did not have a lock on it. Nowhere. There was not an inside lock. There was not an outside lock. And I could not get the door unlocked.
No, it had one of those, like, 1900s, keyhole things where you could see through it, like your quintessential keyhole.
Yeah.
So, and it was non-functioning.
Yeah.
There was no key for it.
So I had to call Ryan to come get us out of the room. That was our first experience of like, what's going on?
And I had to completely disassemble the doorknob and take everything off in order to get that thing apart. It was stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
The
kind of
doorknob
scary.
wouldn't even turn. Yeah, that was creepy.
So then we got through that. And then over a period of time, when you go down to build the fire in the furnace, now it goes back to that, when I was talking about the feeling is if there's energy or a spirit in your house. When you went down there, you felt like somebody was right here the whole time while you're trying to build the fire. And you're just not looking back. Most times you would take the dog with you because you're just scared. And you just build your fire and you'd run back upstairs and you'd slam the door. Because it just felt like that, whatever was there followed you the whole time during all that.
Yeah.
And that was almost every time you were down there. And
I mean, and there was the door that went, you went up the stairs into the house. There was that door. And then there was a door that went out into the backyard.
Yeah.
And I always thought that maybe somebody came into the basement.
Yeah.
Because that's the feeling I got when I was down
Yeah.
there. Yeah. And I don't have feelings, I do, but not like that.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it just dawned on me, we are fans of watching Ghost Adventures and stuff like that, but they're at the Winchester house.
Mm-hmm.
And all the weird angles and all the weird stuff. That ranch house had weird rooms and weird angles.
Yeah, it did totally. And my oldest daughter had the room that was the weirdest. It had the most weirdest angles. It had all the midget doors. Well, every room had midget doors, what we call the midget doors. And that room was always the creepiest. And it had like the Amityville Horror window.
Oh, yeah.
So like when you would look up there, I mean, you always felt like you saw shadowy.
Do we have a picture of it?
I think we have a picture of it. I don't know if I do.
We can pull that up and I'll explain. So, and we kind of gave some of the rooms nicknames. Like the room that they got locked into, which was the youngest daughter's room. We called that the bowling ball room because it was skinny and long. And then there was another room, which was John, our grandson's room, although he never really slept in it. We called that the midget room because the ceiling was super low. And then you had the other room, which had, you'd walk into the room through the doorway, and there was like a small little alcove, like little miniature living room area. And then it was 90-degree angles into the rest of the room. But when you would look up at like where the crown molding would be, everything was at an angle. It was all like angles. There wasn't like a smooth, like you typically have 90-degree angles in every room because they're square, right? But it was just different. I wish we had pictures of the inside of it. I know we don't.
Yeah, I don't think I have any pictures that I pulled up. I would have to go back. But yeah, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have a story about the ranch house, and you'll be able to see what we're talking about. But I don't think I have a good picture of that specific room. But yeah, so we stayed there for about a year, and it was always like that. You get scared, you hear things. To me, to be honest, if I was honest with myself, I say my daughter had mental health issues. I feel like when we were in that house, because that was her room, looking back on it now, I almost feel like she got an attachment from that house, because it seemed like after that, that's when she really started declining. And because we weren't privy to the paranormal at that time, we totally just missed it. Totally missed it.
I think we kind of chalked some of it up to postpartum.
Yeah, because that's when she had her first son.
But I think maybe when you're in that kind of state of mind, it opens yourself up for other things.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm convinced that she had got an attachment from that house. But so we decided to move out of that house. And when we did that, that seems to be when the energy really escalated in the house. So when the last day we were moving in, I went and was cleaning out the last part of the stuff out of the house. And I went up and made sure all the little doors were closed. And they had a latch that you latch it down, it's really tight. And there's no way they could pop open. And so I do all that through all the rooms. And then I go downstairs and I hear like a bang or a pop, like a door opening. I'm like, oh my God, what was that? So I run back up and all the midget doors are open.
Now we talk about midget doors. Basically what they were like, 2.5 foot tall doors on the walls that led to crawl space, which had been kind of converted to storage area.
Yeah.
So it was like if you were in an attic, but, the plywood was down, so you could crawl in there. They went back maybe 5 feet, all the way around the house. So the whole exterior you could walk around or crawl around, and that was storage. So that's what the midget doors went into.
Yeah. No offense to midgets. We love midgets.
When we talk about that, it's like those were doors that went into like void space in the house, which was kind of creepy anyways.
Yeah.
So, and then, I mean, I just think that they didn't want us to move out.
Yeah. So you can tell your story about the phone?
Well, okay, yeah. So I've told this before, but I'll tell it again. So a friend of mine came to help move all our stuff. And we had an old school phone. So like an actual like dial tone, plug it in, doesn't need power, corded phone, analog phone. I'm not sure what they call them anymore. You can't barely even buy them.
Rotary phones.
Yeah, rotary. It wasn't really in a rotary. It was like the buttons, but it had the curly Q cord and the whole 9 yards, right? So we had that in the room we were using as our office.
Yeah.
So when we were moving everything, I had unplugged it and wrapped the cord around it and set it on top of a desk, along with some other stuff. So my friend and I were going to pick up the desk and carry it outside with all the crap on top of it. So we pick the desk up and the phone starts ringing, and it's the bell.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just ringing. And we look at each other and it's like, that's weird because there's no power. No, it's not plugged into the wall. I unwrapped the whole thing and it had like a 10-foot long phone line. I unwrapped it. I picked it up and said hello. And there was nothing. There was no dial tone. There was no noise whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, well, we're going to do this later. And we're going to stop what we're doing and we're going to go outside. So we went outside onto the back porch, and next to the back porch was a carport. And I had a bunch of stuff piled into an old vehicle that we had. We were going to tow everything in that. And all of a sudden, it just started hailing. And it was hailing hard. But you look around, the hail was only falling on our house. So there was a long driveway, probably about 150, 200 yard long dirt driveway that went from the highway to the house. And it had a couple gates because there was still cows. It was an active cattle ranch. So when you looked at the driveway, just past where the first gate was, there was no hail. When you look over at the neighbor's house, which was the ranch hand that lived on the property, which was probably another 200 yards from there, it was dry. So it was only hailing where we were at. And then all of a sudden it just stopped.
Yeah.
Very weird.
So yeah, that house was crazy. So yeah, we ended up moving out. And then I don't think we didn't experience anything after that for a while. I don't think much was going on with us in our other house. And then we bought the house that we live in now. So we've been in this house since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Probably was experiencing some things and didn't know it until all this other stuff started kind of compounding.
Yeah, I don't think we really understood much of it until, like you just said, all of the stuff happened.
So kind of the story to where we live is we live in Shasta Lake City, which is way in Northern California. And a lot of the land that has been built on there is all Native American land. So a lot of sacred land got built on, a lot of cemeteries were moved, a lot of spirits were disrupted and just put all over the place. Even families weren't even moved together. So, and if anybody knows how California came about, obviously there was a lot of killing and war, and you had settlers coming here for the gold rush. So a lot of stuff happened here. So I can't imagine the amount of energy that's been left here. Well, I can now, but but before we moved in this house, I didn't, I never thought about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we never, you just don't, it's like out of sight, out of mind, what you don't see, what you don't notice.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we started having experiences.
Yeah. So my dad passed away in April of 22. And then,
so we moved into the house April 10th of 16.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So April 22, my dad passed away and we brought his ashes home. And, everybody says that's kind of a no-no to bring ashes home because you want to put your families, you want them to be at rest and to be able to move on the proper way. And if you hold on to the ashes, that could be not such a great thing. I think that's personal to people. So I don't tell them whether they should be doing that or not doing that. But for us personally, that's when things started happening in our house. My dad was a logger and he didn't like law enforcement, and he was kind of a prankster and a jokester. So the stuff that that started happening was my dad.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you were working.
Thanks.
And you were working on the ambulance at the time, so you were gone on a 48-hour shift or something. And,
Yeah.
And I was at home with the kids. It's late, 11 o'clock. I was watching TV and I was watching a logging show, like on Discovery Channel or something, just kind of killing time, couldn't sleep. And the kids have toys everywhere, you know. One of their toys was a little police car that has lights and sirens that will go off if you push down on the light bar. Well, obviously, nobody's over there touching it. It's across the room. It just started going off. And it was like, holy cow. So it's like I go over there, I check it, you know, it seems to be working when I touch it. I think, well, maybe the batteries. So I change the batteries and all that stuff. And then it happened again. So of course it's like, all right, I got to get a camera out and all that stuff and get all that stuff set up. And then it never happened after I set that up. But then I had other nights after that where other toy cars were going off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where it started, you know. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else. There was some stuff that had fallen out of the pantry.
Yeah, things were falling out of the pantry. And that's kind of when we were actually started filming at that time, just dipping around with my grandson's camera that we bought him. But then when we started catching things in our camera, like light anomalies, things that definitely were not bugs, and we spent a lot of time trying to decide if they were or not. But we just started capturing stuff. So we bought a better camera and we actually got some more tools because, yeah, I think we got our first spirit box. It was that little red box that everybody gets, little red and black ones, which is fine. But if you're in a lot of radio waves, they pick up a lot of radio.
Well, that was right around the time that we went to the museum.
Yeah. So then we go to, we go to Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. And we had some experiences in there, mostly in the Dybbuk's box room and
the hallway with the mirrors.
That one, and then the doctor.
Oh yeah, Kevorkian. The Kevorkian room. I got poked in the side.
Yeah. So when we went into, I don't know how much you guys know about the Dybbuk's boxes, but those come from, the internment camps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If I remember right, I haven't talked about him in a long time. So,
yeah.
Anyway, Zach Bagans has I don't know how many of those boxes does he have, but
4 or 5.
Yeah, but he's got supposedly the most haunted one, and I'm sure everybody knows the story with Post Malone and all that, and when they had their incident in there. So we went in there not really thinking about it. They have it all encased now with all kinds of weird writing on the glass and stuff like that. It's really cool, but we didn't even know. I don't even think we knew what a REM pod was yet, and of course they have stuff kind of hidden in there. So when you do the night investigation, if things go off, then, there's probably some activity there. So we go in there and, obviously everybody went in there and they were asking about Post Malone and all that and that experience. And then I remember, hey, this is from the Holocaust. These boxes are from the Holocaust. So then I started asking questions about the Holocaust. And as soon as I did, that REM pod was going off. But at the time, we didn't know what it was. We're like, what is that? Oh, my God.
It scared the crap out of us.
It was like, are we having a fire? No.
Well, we were like shoulder to shoulder in there because it was a little creepy. And then I got this weird feeling to walk to the corner where this other Dybbuk's box was, which was the one where you're supposed to leave an offering.
Yeah.
Because we never really did leave an offering.
No, we never left an offering.
So I'm like, I should go over there. Maybe I'll put $1 there or something. And then 2 steps away from you is when that REM pod went off. And I don't know if it was a fire alarm or what. I mean, it scared the crap out of me.
Yeah. So we go out of that room and we ask, there's always a chaperone or from the museum. They sit there in case something happens. And we're asking her about it. She's like, yeah, it hardly ever goes off not very often. So then we go back in and it goes off again. So that was kind of interesting. We wanted to stay longer, but obviously we had to move on because you only have a certain amount of time to do your investigating. But then we went through this one part where he has a really cool old time circus display set up. It's really awesome. And you go through that room and then you go into this hallway with opposing mirrors. And I think these guys went out. Ryan had went out with this. We had
tag along.
We had a shadow. She was following us around the place, but it was guys. I think she came by herself, and we just made her feel safe, I guess.
Yeah, she didn't want to walk around. I don't blame her. I wouldn't really want to walk around by myself there either.
So they went out of the hallway, but then when Ryan came back in, all of a sudden you hear this disembodied scream, and it was like something you want as a first responder. Our first thing is oh my God, we got to run to the scream.
Yeah, who needs help?
Yeah, it was so weird, and it was so vivid and so pronounced that there was no mistaking that it was it's like in the distance scream, but it was definitely a female scream.
Oh yeah.
Almost like she needed help. So that was really scary. We kind of ran out of the room and people are like, oh my God, what's going on? And we're like, oh my God, we just heard somebody scream. Yeah. And then we went to the Kevorkian room and Ryan got poked. So we kind of almost have a feeling that maybe something might have followed us home from there.
Potentially.
I mean, there's always
know.
potential when you do investigations and you get into those locations. They're pretty energy filled and spirit filled. And but I highly recommend you, if you like that kind of stuff, to go, because he's got a lot of cool stuff.
It's an awesome museum, whether you like his show or not. I mean, that's probably one of the best museums just overall. And I've been to car museums and airplane museums and trains, and I mean, you name it, I've been there. But this was probably one of the best museum experiences, aside from the paranormal, just all the stuff that he's been able to collect.
Well, so then we get back home, and we kind of go back again because it's supposed to be about our house. Yeah. So we get down these rabbit holes. So in our house, after my dad passing and us going through all that, that kind of really got us to wanting to do more of this stuff. So some of the experiences in our house, when we brought my daughter's ashes home, I also ended up with her dad's ashes because my kids have different dad. And he wasn't a very nice person. So I think some of his negative energy got into our house, because then I started becoming affected. So how do you know you're an empath, or how do you know if you're a highly sensitive person? You will know it. For me, it was like I started getting tired all the time. I'd have moments where I'd be dizzy, have vertigo, not true vertigo, because vertigo is a pretty serious condition, but have those dizzy moments. And, it's like I would lose time. Like I would space off and lose like 10 minutes of time and come back, and I don't even know where I was or what I was doing. And I wouldn't be able to collect myself. I had a hard time getting back on task, so I started experiencing all those things. So then we decided to, Ghost Adventures did their House Calls spinoff show. And we thought it would be funny to send a clip in of some of the light anomalies.
Funny being the key word. We didn't think that it would be turn into anything.
Yeah, because at this point we're super inexperienced. We are experiencing this stuff. We don't really know what's going on. It's kind of confusing, but you're excited because you want to know more, because here we have all these emotional things going on and we want to be able to connect with our family. So we sent the clip in and they actually called us. So they ended up investigating the house and captured all the same things that we had been capturing.
Now, we were trying to do it as a funny thing, like, oh, they're never going to pick us, right?
Yeah.
And then the other part of it was mostly our motivation, I think, was just to get some justification of what we're experiencing is legitimate, right? So every time you would start to have some feelings and stuff, it's like, all right, well, we'll break a camera out, we'll put some devices out. And we had collected a few more devices over by this time, REM pod and I think we had the millimeter at that point.
Yeah, we got a millimeter.
Things like that, right? The SB7 spirit box was like one of the first things we got. So we started using those things, and the REM pod was going off pretty much every time we would set up, every time. And it would go off intelligently. We'd ask a question and it would go off, right? And then she would be affected. So it's like, now we have equipment going off, you're being affected. Yeah. Is this real? Is this not real? What's happening? So it's like, we'll send some video footage out to Ghost Adventures. And in our video footage, we're capturing anomalies.
Yeah. So 3 days before, of course they tell us not to investigate our house anymore. And I know most of you have heard the story, but so they said, don't investigate. We're like, all right, we won't. And we did, because we got a new camera.
Yeah.
And we got Leanne's stuff out. We got her ashes, and we have a locket of her hair and this little bear that she wrote all over. It's only like 3 inches tall. So we set that all out. And because we were kind of bored, we got the new camera. We're not catching anything at this point. We're like, oh, well, let's get her stuff out just first to see. And so Leanne used to poke me on my shoulder all the time, to get my attention and stuff like that. So I'm like, Leanne, poke my shoulder like you do. And then all of a sudden this anomaly or this manifestation comes out of the carpet, and
it's extremely unique. And yeah.
So we'll try to show it here. Maybe. Oh, there we go. I wish this was a better video, but sorry. I don't know if it's going to go on its own. Anyways, right here, where that black arrow is, I keep thinking you can see my arrow, but you can't. Right where that little black arrow is, That's the manifestation that came out of the carpet. Now, when we were filming in our house and we catching all these anomalies, I kind of noticed this thing that when this one would come out in more of a orb type shape, there was the second one that would come out, and it was like childlike all the time. So I kind of equated that to Leanne's baby she lost, Hannah. So when you've seen this one, you would always see the second one. And in this video, Hannah is there. It's just really hard to see. Really, it just is dependent on your computer.
I think we have the video on this computer.
Maybe, but it's also on our YouTube channel. So we're kind of getting short on time, but it's also on our YouTube channel. But right there, we believe that's Leanne manifesting in our living room. So yeah, that's just one.
Yeah, it came, and I was filming, and I had like stood up to move my angle, and then I stopped, and I was just standing there, and I watched it in real time on the camera screen. I didn't see it. I was watching the camera screen, and I watched it come out of the carpet and then kind of fly up and around, and it felt like it went through me. Like I felt it pass by. And it's a sensation and a feeling that you can't really describe. It's like you got the wind knocked out of you, but I wasn't scared and I could still breathe.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really talk.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
So then we also, in our house, before we bought the house, there was a couple that lived there. They were older, and their oldest daughter was living with them. I think she was about 45 or so. And she also passed away in that house. She coded in the hallway, which means CPR in progress. And she had no pulse. So technically she was not with us anymore. And we've heard her voice in the hallway before. And that hallway is where all the energy is in our house. And you can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then just, there's just a lot of little things that have happened to us since then. So.
The toilet seat, I've watched the toilet seat go up on its own. And then I did find those pictures.
Oh, so yeah. Oh, wow. There's just so much to talk about. I don't even know.
Sent them to the paranormal email.
Okay. I don't know if there's enough time to do all these. We've experienced so much in this house in the last, 3 years. I mean, we've been there since 16, but it seemed like it just really escalated when we brought all the ashes home of our families. Yeah. I do believe Leanne is still there. I think she's there because she watches over her children. We have 3 of her kids. They're 11, 6, 6, huh? Oh my God.
Well, next week it'll be 12, 6, and 3. So the 3-year-old, and this is why we believe that Leanne is still in the house watching over her kids, because the 3-year-old woke up one morning and it happened to be her birthday. So she had some marks on her. They weren't painful. She wasn't complaining about it. But they appeared to be, to me, it looks like a handprint. And it's not a handprint that was hers. So it wasn't like she was laying on it. It was an adult-sized handprint. So it makes me think that maybe she, Leanne was like patting her a little bit or something. I don't know what the right word is.
It's kind of hard to say because before Ghost Adventures came to our house, Judith at the time was only like, a year and a half, 2 years old, just walking. And she would wake up in the middle of the night. Generally, her wake up time is between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So you can tell that story because you woke up.
So yeah, there's times when she says that she sees monster. She also wakes up around 2 or 3 almost every night. And then there was a time that I don't think she was actually up at that point, but I had got up because I thought I heard her or something. Oh no, she was awake. She was standing in the hallway.
Yeah, so she wasn't old enough to turn the door handle. So we had always shut the door at night.
Well, we had
the safety things on
there.
Because she's the kind of kid that will get out and go run the streets if we don't have everything locked down.
Oh yeah.
She's very curious.
She'll go look for the neighborhood cat.
She's been that way since she popped out. So so she couldn't open the door on her own. And then on this specific night, Ryan heard her And so he gets up to check on her, and she's literally standing in the hallway.
Oh,
and
she looks scared.
Yeah, and the bedroom door is wide open. She's screaming, and there's just no way she could have got that door open, because since then, she's older now, but at that time, she still couldn't open the door for a really long time because she just was too little.
No, and that was the point when it's like we had baby monitors in the room because she was so little that she really couldn't even climb out of bed. She would just cry, and we would go in there and get her.
So here's a picture that I'm sharing. You can see like 4 fingers on her thigh right there. And this just showed up out of the blue. I mean, she wasn't crying. She wasn't upset. And this was way after the door opening thing.
Oh, yeah. And this was the morning of her birthday.
Yeah. Where's her birthday? I forgot about that.
So it would have been her birthday in 24.
Yeah.
So, and I just went to, change her little pull-up diaper and noticed it. And it wasn't raised or anything. It didn't hurt her. It just, that's what it looked like.
So you can see still the little finger marks there, which is so weird.
Yeah, it's just one of those strange things.
So these are just all the things that we've gone through, all the stuff that we wake up to, that we really don't share with people because we kind of forget about it. A few months ago, I was, I'm not a good sleeper, so I was up till like 2 a.m. and I had a book in my hand or whatever I was doing, and I was sitting there and I had my legs crossed, and it literally felt like somebody grabbed my leg. I couldn't feel the squeeze, but it was like somebody had grabbed my leg and shook my leg really hard. And that scared me. So of course I woke up the whole house. Like, oh my God, something just grabbed my leg. So those are things that we still go through now. So if you're experiencing any of those things, I don't think I would necessarily be afraid of it. Just understand it, because not everything is demonic. I don't feel like there's anything demonic in my house. I have had a reading done before. I've been told that there's a young military guy that stands at the end of our bed and just wants to know why he's still here, or what happened. There's another guy she talks about that he has got severely burned and he's angry and he stands at the end of my bed and he stares at us, which there's nights that I'm really uncomfortable in my room. I'm not scared, but I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It can kind of be a little scary because you feel it and it's there, but I have to just like ignore it. And then she brought up a death guide or a spirit guide,
an Indian spirit guide.
But I'm not sure about that. I've talked to people. I'm a big Sean Clyn fan, and we've talked to him about that a little bit, or listened to his stories about spirit guides, and that's kind of specific. So I think she was a little bit off base there. I'm not going to say she's 100% wrong, but that's something I'm still trying to figure out.
Well, I think she was saying that he's on the outskirts of the property, and we needed to do a offering of tobacco to allow him to come in so that he could show you the way. But to me, it's like, I don't know if I want to invite anything in that I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we have enough company there.
Yeah, we're not doing anything. We're not doing seances. We're not doing Ouija boards. We're not doing anything. We don't even have that stuff in our house. We don't do any of that stuff because we don't want to invite things on purpose. Like, if you're there, we'll communicate with you, but we're not going to open up portals so that we can communicate with people.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that, and we've been told twice that we have a portal in our house, and I pretty much believe that.
Yeah, Paul, shame on us. We have not covered up our mirrors in front of our bed.
Let me see. I think I have that video somewhere.
Yeah.
Or is it in Instagram? Darn it.
So, a lot of people have heard our story kind of over and over, right? And we don't want to keep kind of beating that dead horse in with over and over telling our same story. But we wanted to kind of bring into all of the experiences, different things that have happened to us in our house, and to why it really has kind of shaped us into wanting to, start this group called Paranormal Triage and this whole spiritual, search for the spiritual awakening. It's you take the first responder element, you take the personal element of the things we've experienced and all of that, and it's it all kind of is the cumulative effect of why we're doing what we're doing, if that makes any sense.
So I haven't learned I had to take this off YouTube, so sorry for all the extra on there. But is this going to play on here? Okay. So I actually was really sick this night. So this is when you know you're a true investigator, when you will still investigate when you've been deathly ill for 3 days. So in this video, you have all these light anomalies going one direction. Now, are some of them bugs and stuff like that? Potentially, but we have filmed this room multiple times, and never had this kind of activity in our room. And they're just going all over the place.
And we've done the process of elimination for the things to debunk what's going on. You know, we don't have any air conditioner heater on. The ceiling fans are off. You know, there's nothing that would be causing stuff to fly around.
Yeah, there should be no movement in this house at all.
You can go at this exact day, you could go film the hallway right outside the door. You film inside the bathroom, which is just off to, I guess it'd be the left of the camera view. And there was none of this stuff in there. So it's like if we had stuff flying around our house, we would see it in other parts of our house, not just only in the one room.
So I'm going to stop it right here for a minute. So I guess that would be to the, I don't know if you guys are looking at it right or left, to the back side of my head. You will see you'll see all my stuff against the wall. That's a big cabinet that we keep all our stuff in. On top of that cabinet are not only my mom's ashes, but Leanne's ashes. So you will see a light anomaly come out of that area and fly above my head. And I'm pretty sure we've kind of decided that's probably Leanne.
Oh, yeah. And then also above that, there's like a little shelf, kind of a ceiling level up there. And I think that's where we've still got some of your dad.
Well, no. Yeah, at the time, maybe he was.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah, I guess he is still there. Is he still there?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, yeah, my dad is actually
and then
part
also
of
the
him.
box of Hannah.
It's really bad when you start losing track of ashes. But yeah, Leanne's daughter, Hannah, all of her little dresses and her pictures from the hospital are also sits up on that top shelf. So I'm pretty convinced this is Leanne just coming out and saying, hey, I'm here. So, and she does it quite often, you know, so.
And I think it's when you walk around.
I'm going to walk around here and do whatever I'm doing. Beat on the bed again. There it is right there. So that little white anomaly above my head.
It's flying around like that.
And it goes up and it actually goes to where Hannah's little box of stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure that's Leanne making her little presence known. She got to be nosy, be into everything.
Doing her rounds.
So yeah, so those are the kind of things that are happening in our house, have happened. And I know, like I said, I know we're going to say this a million times. I know we've told these stories and talked about it, but we kind of wanted to bring it full circle for people that haven't heard the stories. And if you're wondering if you have spirits in your house or are you experiencing anything, this is kind of a start, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, you have to go into these things, obviously, with, you know, respect and understanding and being really strong in your faith.
Strong in your faith, open-minded, like you said, understanding. The respect is huge.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to just start busting out Ouija boards and doing crazy seances and, you know, doing all these weird little things that you could probably get yourself in trouble with. I don't recommend kids have Ouija boards. I'm highly against that, you know, because kids are just so susceptible to stuff, you know.
Do your research also about kind of where you're living in the area and all that stuff. Like we've talked about before, the history does play an important part of this. So do your research about where you're at to determine what may have happened in or around your house.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of factors that play into whether or not your house is haunted or not, and whether it's an actual presence there or whether there's residual energy.
I think because of the history of the area where we live, we have a little bit of everything. You know, we have the Native American land that we live on. Not only do we have that, a couple of stories we did forget is we really didn't want to tell people that we were paranormal investigators in the beginning of this because we didn't want people to think we were weird. Why we worry about that, I don't know. But it was just kind of weird to go, yeah, we do paranormal stuff. What do you do? Paranormal stuff. Yeah. So, but then it kind of opened the door for other people to start telling their stories. So in our neighborhood, in other houses, they say they see like a pioneer woman walking around their houses. She'll go into the houses, sometimes be out on the sidewalk. And the developer that actually built that neighborhood, he actually died in a car accident on that plot of land.
The very first developer that had purchased that land, they had cut in some of the roads and stuff, and he died, like crashed his truck or
Yeah, he
something
crashed his truck.
up in there. And that was, you know, the first one. And then it has gone to different developers who actually developed that area. But the very first one, you know, he didn't make it.
Yeah. So they say he walks around the neighborhood that they see. And Aaron actually from Ghost Adventures claimed to see a tall cowboy in my hallway for a minute second,
Yeah.
which could have either been my dad, but now I'm kind of leaning more towards that it might have been this guy. And we did want to talk about Jay, but I don't know if we should talk about that now.
Well, I mean, if really what it comes down to is obviously we have a personal connection to our house and a personal connection to the experiences there. So we're a little biased to that part. But, you know, I would like to say that we are not naive or ignorant to everything going on, right? So I don't believe that any of the things happening in our house is evil or demonic.
No, not at all.
We're not having poltergeist activity,
No.
right? I mean, it's either some residual stuff or really our belief is that it's Leanne and Hannah bouncing around.
Yeah.
I think some of the residual energy of that hallway of some of the past residents, maybe, yes. Yeah. And maybe a few things, you know, Paul, you talked about, you know, the mirrors being a portal type of thing. Yeah, I think that could be a case to a certain point. But I don't think there's anything evil or anything that means us harm.
Yeah.
In the house. With that being said, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I feel I respect the Ghost Adventures guys that came to our house. Aaron, Billy, and Jay, you guys did a really good job. You were very respectful. You were very scientific. You had your process. You did everything. You captured a lot of the same types of physical evidence that we have captured in our house, right? So that kind of solidifies our feelings about what we're getting is legitimate.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't, you know, Jay.
Jay doesn't want to come back to our house.
Jay, I love you, but you said you'd never go back to our house.
That hurts my feelings.
The whole demonic thing. You know, yeah, you got sick in our sink. And I have two theories. Okay. So my two theories, I'll just put it out there. My first theory is that the reason why you got sick is because a very protective mother in spirit form was protecting her son's stuff. So you were going through a chest of things that were her belongings.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things that Jay was holding happened to be some artwork that John had done when he was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
And it was something that she had kind of helped him with and experienced.
Yeah.
Right before she kind of got lost.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was asking questions about that, and they do their thing. They weren't mean or disrespectful when they're asking questions, but they have a way of kind of enticing spirits to react. Okay. So I think she was the kind of person that wouldn't take any lip from anybody.
Yeah.
I think either she just punched you in the gut or she did something to tell you to stop messing with my kid's stuff.
Yeah. Because after he did that, they actually caught what they think is her in the SLS camera and a black ball orb from that chest.
Yes.
And just not too long after that, he immediately went into my kitchen and completely like barfed his guts out.
Yeah.
To put it mildly. So, and then after the fact, they tried to, so I don't know if everybody knows about the picture that Jay took in the desert. They tried to equate that picture to maybe, because in that episode, I had actually touched Jay, and they believe that I passed something off to Jay, and then Jay released it into the desert. That comes to Brian's next theory.
My next theory is obviously Brenda is not a very touchy-feely person. She's not the kind of person who's going to go up. She doesn't give hugs to people. Basically the kids and the kids only, right? So what it comes down to is the fact that she went up and touched him, and what she said is like something to I'm paraphrasing, but like I can't
get better if you don't get better. I don't know why I did it. I don't have an answer.
Right.
So don't ask me because I don't have an answer.
So, these guys, they go to a lot of places and experience a lot of things. And I don't care how much you practice protection and how much you go through kind of your quote unquote rituals of protection
and cleansings. Yeah,
that's a better word. It may not work great. Right. So my other theory is that maybe Jay had something already.
Yeah.
And new empath and a lot of crazy things happening, new experiences, a lot of things happening in our house at that exact moment. Something, for lack of a better term, possessed you to touch him.
Yeah.
But not on a bad way.
No.
More like, you got to do this. And maybe that was what it took to cleanse him from whatever was following him around.
Yeah.
Because he was affected from the moment he walked into our
Yeah,
house. It wasn't just after you touched him.
Yeah. And there was something when he
really
walked into that
couldn't even
house.
stay in the house for very long.
Yeah, I was kind of weird anyways. I was going through a whole bunch of stuff before they even got there. I didn't even want them in my house at one point. But as soon as he walked in the door, there was just like this like connection. It was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on, but there's something that I still to this day really can't explain.
So, I mean, like I said, we're biased because it's our house. And, yes, we are investigators. We are not, investigators with 20 years experience under our belt going to different places, but we have enough personal experiences between our own paranormal experiences and our first responder experience to understand the spirituality of things, the connection of things that, theory number 2 is probably more of like my top theory, is that he had something going on already, and whatever was in our house didn't want it there.
Yeah.
That's my theory there.
So that was the whole point of this whole show, just to kind of tell you about all the things that we've gone through. Maybe you can relate to some of it. We're an open book. So if you have questions or want to talk about maybe things you're going through, please reach out to us. We're, like I said, we're an open book, and we love to share our stories and whatever else we got coming down the road. Virgil, I would love to come to England. Maybe that will happen someday, and you take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And when it comes to sleeping, sometimes you have to embrace it when you're awake, and kind of take it head on and tell yourself, and come to a place. I don't want to say you need to meditate over it, but just find a place that's good for you, whether that's going somewhere that you enjoy or around people that you enjoy, but do something to where you can kind of face that head on and be like, okay, I've accepted this. I'm accepting what happened, and I need to move forward with it.
And the one thing that God gives us, or whatever your higher power is, whatever that looks like for you, the biggest gift that our maker gives us is memories. I know we always have good memories. We're not here just to focus on bad things and bad memories and death. He gives us those things so we can remember and hold on to all those good things in life. I don't believe when we die that we turn to dirt, like my religion taught me when I was little. I believe we go into another dimension, and that's where I guess our heaven is. Maybe, I don't know. But I don't think it ends here. We're too intricate.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe that there is a higher power, and that this higher power is in control. And I believe that when we exhaust our resources in our physical body, whether that is on purpose or just because time, right? We go to a different dimension, and at that point we become a little bit more knowledgeable and unknowing of everything that's going on, and we have more power within our soul than our brain knows what to do with and our body knows what to do with. So people that have moved on to that other dimension, they say maybe the 5th dimension, that is a place where people can, your consciousness can be happy. So I don't think there's any bad places out there. I think our higher power accepts more people than what the general public wants to admit. So
I think we're going to end it there. We're kind of a lot over time here. So thank you for being here. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, want to talk about anything, please reach out. We're an open book, and we just thank you guys for coming to watch us tonight.
Yeah. If you haven't, if this is the first time you've seen us, subscribe to our channels, whatever social media platform you prefer. Across the bottom is our website there. Go to the website. We have a contact form and all connections to all the rest of our social medias, so you can keep
We have a merch
contact
store.
with us.
If you want a coffee mug or shirt, we have a merch store.
Yeah,
so
check it out.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. You all have a good night.
All right.